Good morning to you. You are watching Issues at Hand on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Bruno Edgard. Thank you for joining today's episode. And Issues at Hand is proudly brought to you by Protea Hotel Entebbe. Yes, you can get yourself a relaxing spa. You can have a conference at Protea Hotel Entebbe. You can also go and enjoy the amenities there, like wonderful rooms, wonderful meals, and then you can also go and have a look at the lakeside view that's on offer. So call the number and make a reservation and booking today when it comes to Protea Hotel Entebbe. Now, talking about a relaxation, when it comes to, there's a lot of pressure that comes to parents when the term is beginning, when school is beginning. We have enjoyed January. We have not seen things like traffic jam. We have kept away from the stress of thinking about school fees to a certain extent. But now, come February, the schools are going to open and it will be back to school season. So I know a lot of us parents get anxious, but the good thing with knowledge is that knowledge comes to strip away anxiety. And today we are going to be discussing about critical things that we should look at as the schools reopen. And by the end of the program today, I know that you will not be anxious for anything, like the Bible says, be anxious for nothing. So thank you for joining us. Now, with me to have this discussion today, I have Mr. Andrew Kyeyune, who is guidance counselor, and he is an educationist, and he's critical when it comes to capacity building for schools. And then I also have with me Mrs. Elizabeth Opolot, who is an educationist as well, and is the director of Global Institute of Science and Technology when it comes to Makerere. Thank you for joining us on Issues at Hand this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about the Institute, for those of us who might not be aware of it.
Okay. I'm delighted, and I want to thank God that has enabled me come here. A happy New Year to the viewers and the listeners. I'm called Elizabeth Opolot, and director of Global Institute of IT and Business, which is found in Makerere, that is at Kubiri roundabout. Global Institute of IT and Business has a variety of courses that it offers, namely IT courses. Then we have also business courses. We have media courses. We also have vocational courses, and only one health science course. Yes.
Indeed. So we shall get to know more about why the Global Institute is really good when it comes to education here in Uganda, pushing the sector forward. And so you are the right people to talk to when it comes to these issues. So let's start from things that we need to pay attention to as parents when it comes to the starting of the first term. And I know something that usually gives us headaches, school requirements. Can you speak to that, Mr. Andrew?
Oh yes, good morning all the viewers of Family TV. Thank you so much for keeping yourselves tuned for such important and educative programs. I'm Kyeyune Andrew, an educationist, and at the same time in guidance and counseling, especially of the youth. I know parents out there listening, there are those increasing pressures around this time. Besides school fees, I must also look at the endless list of school requirements, as they normally term it. But I think I'm here basically to educate that parents should not perceive it as purely wrong or exploitative or torturing to have, besides school fees, that other additional list of the requirements. Because mainly under requirements, we shall always talk of the reams of papers, which truly are used by students because they are subjected to various tests. And now you find parents normally complain, must I bring a ream on a termly basis? Yes, I wouldn't love you to take it in that on a wrong note, because if only shops would have quarter ream, half ream, 3/4 rim, then maybe would at one point say, P4, bring a quarter rim. But now that it's one rim and that is all is packaged, we ask for that. And trust me, these kids do a lot of work that calls for such. Then the brooms. People forget one thing, that when we were growing, we would move around the villages and make our own local brooms. And they would still abundantly be sold everywhere you would go. But nowadays, where do you get this? We resort to the modern brooms or moppers or squeezers. And even you people who use them at home, I think their durability is questionable. That you can't use one squeezer for a month too. So you find by the time we run down the term, the next term will definitely call for fresh brooms, fresh squeezers. So, and we must keep in a very hygienic environment. I don't think any parent would be pleased entering a dirty dormitory, dirty toilets, and nowadays we have basically waterborne toilets. So inevitably it calls for toilet papers. And when a parent is asked for a full bundle, package, or roll, you find at times they don't perceive it well. But the truth remains, there is one thing you can never cause limit to. You cannot say this is the amount of toilet paper you must use. We are giving you this small piece. No, everyone has the natural right to take, even if it means the whole toilet paper for one call. It remains very okay. So, and you cannot regulate how many times one will visit or use the toilet paper in a day. So we find convenient we must ask for that whole pack, and truly they use them. So parents should not take it in bad faith. They should not look at it as being exploitative. Then when it comes to the saloons, I must cause a flashback. When we were growing, we had our local saloons. Basically, it would be done home by either your mother or any other relative. You get your razor blade and a small comb, and it would manually be done. But these days, I think the world has shifted away from that. So when the school charges that Kalito 10,000 to regularly do the shaving of your child throughout the term, I think it also remains normal. So when you look at almost every other requirement, I think it is still within the limits of common sense. So I wouldn't love parents to perceive it wrongly, but maybe my only caution would be to the school managers, that if I've managed to pay the school fees, and maybe on the requirement note, I've left out an item or two, I should not be then over squeezed or tortured and to a point of write a commitment. You know, schools have gone that funny, write a commitment as if it's an offense. So I feel if fees has been paid and part of the requirements has also been cleared, the issue should be that maybe by the time you come back for visitation or in a spell of a week too, this should also be sorted. But it should not then sound a punishment. Maybe that is at times what irritates parents. So the other issue is fees mainly.
Before we go to fees,
yes.
Now on requirements, you hit the nail there. That one of the issues that have, apart from the fact that many parents are mistreated, write a commitment, someone who is mature writing a commitment to a school, but the issue is parents have lost trust in schools because of the reports that they are receiving from their children. For example, my personal experience in the schools I went to, yes, you asked for toilet paper, we bring toilet paper, but you find that as students, we don't have this. We don't use this toilet paper in our toilets in school. So we ask ourselves, where is the toilet paper that we brought? How come we are not using? We have to be forced to use such hard paper or even leaves, and yet our parents have brought the toilet paper. So it's because the schools are not using the requirements that the parents are bringing, and yet these requirements are costly. That's making parents think, why are we then bringing all these?
Yes, you find every other small thing, even if it's burial ceremony, it calls for accurate management or administration. Now, at one point, some of these small things lack or lose out on the management aspect or fall up. Because at one point, I addressed a parent whose concern was, why should I bring the rims on a termly basis? And I don't think my child uses this rim, a full rim throughout the term. But the parent forgets one thing, that whereas I have 100 students in school, not all the 100 will bring the rims. So in the process, you find total collection is 70 rims. Now, will I chase out the other 30 students whose parents perhaps didn't manage to bring the rims? So you find the 70 I have must be balanced across all the children. Now, the same applies to the toilet tissue, or rather the toilet papers. You find, yes, some have been brought, but maybe in the course of distribution to ensure that each toilet has at that particular point, because it is true that by morning the toilet papers were in there, but come in the afternoon, some rooms or some toilets are missing out, and someone now brands the whole institution or the whole school that we bring our toilet papers but we never find them. Yes, I agree at one point some of those things may not work out accurately as expected, but I think it goes back to the management of such issues. Requirements, how are they kept, how are they distributed? Maybe the caution should be now to the school managers to keep that extra eye into what perhaps they would imagine it's minor, but it makes a very big signal. So one should not at any one time enter a toilet and you find out that tissue is missing. I think it is an embarrassment, especially if you know you brought a full pack. So,
and not only is it an embarrassment, but it's also annoying because, again, my own experience and the experience of people who I was in school with, you would find that the toilet paper was only used by the teachers. So it's very frustrating for me to go and tell my parents, yes, we took toilet paper, but I didn't use any. Instead, it's the teachers
what
who
I
are
realized,
using it. Yes.
Allow
yes,
me
you
to chip in. I think sometimes, yes, the it could be also that the students, there is a misuse of some kind, because maybe the administration goes ahead and ensures that these toilet papers are put in the toilets. However, some of the students, some of the pupils, they possibly are the ones who remove it for selfish reasons, maybe. And therefore, what does this mean? As parents, maybe, are we ensuring that we do teach children some of these values? A value of honesty, a value of responsibility, a value, let us do our part. When we do teach these children about some of the things that they need to do, then we will possibly not get those shortfalls. Because I want to think, sometimes those things are put there, the tissues, but one person goes ahead and removes and pockets. For sure we have such people.
That's true.
And therefore, it comes to us as parents, what is our role? Because even at home, sometimes that can, maybe they will not take away. Maybe that is not. Because you look at it in public toilets. Somebody has to sit outside and distribute. Why? Don't you think they should leave it in the particular rooms, the toilet? Maybe they should. But because human beings, I think, we are not
complicated.
Exactly. That is why they have to sit. Somebody sits outside and be able to distribute. In so doing, it will run the whole day. So that's what I want to think. What is our role?
Yes.
I realize the gap here is, let us do our part as parents. Let us teach. Let us emphasize. Let us say it over and over again that please be honest, be truthful,
on
be
every other small
responsible,
detail.
care about others, not only you. Let us ensure we do that all the time.
And maybe the other small thing still, you find a parent was asked to bring 6 pieces, but only brought 2. And actually that's why some schools have shifted to calling for a full pack of around, I think, a full dozen. 10.
Yeah.
Because when you talk of 2, 3, trust me, after running January, by Feb, there is general shortage. And you'll still find those complaints coming in. We brought our tissues. Maybe they were taken by teachers. Maybe they were sold off. But in reality, how many did you bring? How much do you use a day? So I think even what we used to bring in was too small to cause sufficient supply throughout the term.
Indeed. Now, one of the most contentious issues when it comes to schools and parents is school fees. And we are seeing an ongoing battle between the government of Uganda, especially the Ministry of Education, and private schools and other schools, government schools, who want to increase school fees for this term because, of course, the cost of living is high. But, of course, the Ministry of Education and government are saying, no, we have to regulate fees because parents have also, their pockets have also been affected. What is your say on this?
Oh yes, the question of school fees is a question of choice. Now, I wouldn't love, a very serious debate, because there is no parent that has been put on a gunpoint to take a child to a particular school that pays a given amount. I wouldn't love parents to strain over this. Pay or take your child to a school that can conveniently match with your pocket. That may sound rude, but trust me, it is the most accurate piece of advice. Now, there are schools you find maybe where the complaint may come in. I have been educating my child from school X, but as we ended the third term, moving to now this new term, there was that abnormal increase in fees. But you forget one thing, that maybe this child has now moved to senior 6, a candidate class that calls for bigger requirements and activities. Maybe senior 4, where there is even registration. So when you total it up, you find the bill is a little bigger. But even then, you cannot blame any institution for that added increment because of even the cost of living outside. Because if a kilo of sugar initially was at around 3,800, but it has now, I think, gone up around 500, or rather 5,500. To some supermarkets, it's even 6,000. Almost every other small thing, the price is almost doubling.
But where can we find a balance? Because my response to that as a parent would be that the cost of living does not only affect schools, it also affects me.
Now you forget one thing, that even when these kids were to keep in your home, you would still spend on maintaining or keeping them home, eating, and all the other details. Now you've brought them to me at school, and you forget one thing, this school has only one source of income, that is school fees. So when the other items also hike, I also have on the other hand to press the button of fees so that I balance the equation. So the cost of living, the moment the fuel prices go high and everything doubles, inevitably it will throw an effect to the school managers that the only way to survive is to double or increase or add in items here and there, which definitely multiplies the bill. And even teacher salaries or salaries of all the workers. When I find the prices of food are becoming abnormal, fuel, sugar, I'll go back to my employer. But you know what, Madam Elizabeth, whereas you are giving me 700 and it was making some sense, with the current cost of living, 700 can no longer make any sense. I now also need 900. Now, if every other employee is to do the same to her side, trust me, she has no any other option. She cannot now begin picking loans. She has to go back to the source, which is school fees, and she will also add in that extra coin. At the end of the day, we are in this vicious cycle. Increase here, I increase here, I increase the other side. So inevitably, we have to suffer that pain. But maybe the solution would be that school managers, that is always my humble appeal, let us have a listening ear. As parents bring back the children, they are strained. They are not only looking at one child. Perhaps one has minimum of 4. If one has paid 500,000 out of 1 million expected, let us be patient. Give that grace period. Say in a spell of a month to allow the child, rather the parent, to complete the school fees. And not a situation where it is more or less a prison case. You must have zero balance. There are schools that have such outdated policies. We want zero balance. There is no way you're going to go. I think even if it's heaven, you don't straight away march to heaven. I think there is a first stage. So we should be a little flexible and understand one another when it comes to issues of fees management.
But on that's why the Ministry of Education, because it's hard, again, to leave all the responsibility to school managers, because these are business people. They are going to think business-wise. And like you said, they have a school to run, and they're going to think about the cost effects. That's why the Ministry of Education has come to say, you know what, there is need for regulation. And they have put forward an instrument that has is regulating school fees. In fact, some schools have still decided to hike school fees even after the government said no hiking of school fees this first term, and the government is already threatening that they are going to withdraw their licenses, that they are going to close some of these schools down. Do you think this regulation is feasible?
I think, like Andrew has said, on both sides you seem to understand their state. As government to come in and regulate, that is okay and that is understandable, because I want to think there are some schools that don't seem to, if I could say, don't seem to care. That is agreed. However, like Andrew has said, let us, this is really an appeal to the managers, to the schools, to the proprietors, that let us be understanding. That is for sure. Yesterday, a friend of mine told me that she took back the student, had cleared all the fees, but they just didn't have a room. And they were told to go back. They said, really, can't you understand this? This is what we are saying. Let the schools, the administration, be understanding. Let them be able to listen and hear out what this person is saying, the parent. And when we do it, then obviously we shall be able to work well and work together. But the fact that the government is coming in, I think that is also a healthy situation. Mm-hmm. Although some schools would say, no, you're interfering. Yes, but to be on the safe side, I think we need both parties. Failure to do so, the situation will of course burst, so to say. So I think it is a healthy thing, but it is also important. The government, I think, maybe calls out these headmasters and administrators and listen them out, because they possibly can, bring out some issues that are pertinent. So if they listen, they will be able to come up with a solution that is good.
And when it comes to that triangle, that relationship between the government, the parents, and the schools, there needs to be, because I believe that all stakeholders need to be involved in this discussion, so that there's a way forward. Because on that point of the relationship between schools and parents getting closer, it seems like for a long time there is there is no good relationship between schools and parents. As far as schools are concerned, we want school fees. Give us school fees, we'll be fine with you. Then parents have paid my school fees. Now do what you want. I've left my child there. So do you think that if there was a better, you've already mentioned it, but if there was a closer relationship between parents and schools, for example, last year we had an issue of a musician who went to a certain school and was the singing and the dancing that was going on was not comfortable for many parents, because these are young children and they're not supposed to be doing such acts. And the conversation that ensued after that was schools saying, well, they didn't learn these dances from here. Parents are even the ones who paid for this concert. And parents on our side were saying, but schools, we give you our children, take care of them. You can't allow such concerts and such musicians to come and to bring such acts to our children. So on that, do you think there's a need for the relationship between the parents and the schools to become better, and how can that be done?
Okay, we are suffering a disease, actually, which is almost killing all the education institutions, that parents feel it has only remained a duty of paying fees, and then they sit back and wait for results. They forget that the whole process of educating a child, there are three involved stakeholders: the children, the parents, and the teachers, that must work out this triangular discussional relationship. The moment one party misses out on this debate, then we have lost it all. When you look at all the vices, the deviant behaviors in schools, parents sit back and push the whole blame onto the school managers. For example, you're quoting out the question of a funny dance in the school. Yes, someone could have assembled speakers and played the music, but the dance done by the children was not taught in schools. We forget that these children learn all these dancing strokes and styles while at home. There is no school that has on its curriculum a lesson or a subject, dancing strokes. It's not there. Where do they learn these other skills? From home. So we shouldn't at any one point be seen doing a blame game, but rather creating a cordial relationship. It's unfortunate parent-teachers associations or assemblies have died out. There are few schools that call parents for meetings, and even when they do, how many parents turn up? Yet, if we must have a smooth running of the school, even the question at hand of school fees should have earlier on been agreed upon in meetings, that whereas we are facing challenge A and B, C, we are best solving it by adding a 20,000 here and there. And you find it's a unanimous agreement.
And
but nowadays,
the school will give accountability.
Oh, yes.
On this is why we're increasing, this is where we're going to put this money to, and what.
Yes, and at the end of the day.
Actually, I think on that, we have the PTA, that is Parents Teachers Association. And through those meetings, a parent ought to come out and say, you know what, this and this and this. Failure to do so, you know, some of these things, that's how to, they pass. I don't know whether we are saying that the schools that are increasing the fees, it's because they don't have PTA. I think it is a requirement. And when you look at even the board, BOG, even that, it has representatives, a parent representative, perhaps a student, depending on the
nature of the
institution. There is the OB, a representative. That is
all the different stakeholders are balanced
sure.
out.
Now, in those meetings, those are some of the issues that are talked about. So if that is the case, don't you think there is a leeway? There is an opening for people to come out and complain and say this and the other. But most importantly, in the PTA meetings. And also, when you look at the government schools, if you're going to increase any money, I think you're supposed to give that that it should come from the government. The ministry should be able to allow it to happen, unless we are possibly talking about the private schools. But for government schools, that is what happens.
And the other challenge, why you hint on a point of pulling of a rope between government and school management. You find the government, yes, will have a bigger say, especially when it comes to government schools. But now private schools, the moment government allowed privatization and schools entered the field, or private owners or managers or proprietors entered this business, it becomes a little tricky at one point to regulate them, because someone will set up his own class or standards right from the buildings, the quality services offered, and that will attract a given amount of charge, which we are calling school fees. And trust me, it is not by force that you must strictly go to such a school, unlike a government school where we even have these universal secondary primary education services. Now, here with a private school, I've set up my own standards. Just take a practical example, what happened during COVID time. Each hospital or health facility would have its own charge. And trust me, they would charge you depending on what they go through to provide that service. And it was very tricky, even when the government tried to come in to talk about it, it was very tricky to come up with a conclusive solution. Because after all, I've not forced a particular patient to come to a specific or a particular hospital. The same applies to the question of schools. So where I would only now focus on the solution, it should be that especially for the government schools, if an extra coin must be added, then it should have been agreed upon. Through forums we have talked about, like parents, teachers, associations, or assemblies. Then for these private schools, a parent out there listening, there is no need to have headache or heart attack because of this. Let's cut the coat according to the piece of the cloth available.
But you say that, and again, yes, that is very vital, and it's advice as parents we need to pay close attention to, because many of us want to take our children to schools that we may not handle financially at the moment. But then there is this case of a parent who has said, this is how much I have, this is the school I can handle, and then you find out that the school then increases the fees, and now what do? Do you have to get your child out of the school and go and find another school where you can handle?
Now, the challenge
because
is...
we also, as parents, we also have to look at, whilst it is true, you have to cut your cloth according to the piece you have, still, we want the best for our children. We want them to get the best in education and in co-curricular activities.
Oh, yes.
I think I can say this. Gone are the times when we go by the buildings, the facilities. I know they play a part, for sure they do. But as a parent, where you choose to take the child, also you should have this mind that what is the outcome? What am I going to get from this? You know? Because if you're just going to go by, you know, the appearance, you can easily get a raw deal. Remember, at the end, the certificate which you're going to get, if you're going to take it anywhere, there is nowhere where it shows how were the buildings, like where you studied from. You get
it's the results.
So, what is the quality of education? What is the achievement that you're going to get? If you're going to look at that, then you're going to choose wisely where you're going and where you're going to take your child. Because if you're going to just for the sake of it, because you know the buildings are good, there is this and the other. Yes, they are good, it's important, but what is the quality of education you're going to get from that particular institute or that particular center?
That's very true, because now there's a case of defrauding where schools are putting fronts claiming that they have nice buildings, they have particular services that they don't have. A case in point that apparently there are schools that are going around spreading false information about the results that they have from national examinations, which is a way of convincing parents, come to our schools, we perform well, and then you get there to find out that they don't perform well, or they tell you we have solar power, we have water, we have computer laboratories, and you get there paying all that huge amount of fees, and you find they don't have those amenities as promised.
Yes.
What should be done about that issue, because it's becoming a big issue in this country?
The moment school business was privatized, it is now a business like any other business around the globe. Therefore, the element of marketing and advertisement becomes inevitable. But the truth is, a school is not chosen by the nature of the advert run. Now, the challenge we have the so-called .com children and .com parents, because the requirement of any advert, it has to be persuasive, and for that case someone can even create what does not in reality exist. I have seen people shooting, creating adverts, and you find the impression of 1,000 students seated in a lab, even when in reality it was a small room with just 5 computers. But of course, with the technology, at the end of that day, something bigger is portrayed. I would advise parents, yes, you have seen the advert, and maybe it is catching up your eye and you're picking interest. Get to the site, get to the school. But maybe we shall create another program, if time allows, to educate the parents. What are the qualities of a school that you should really look out for when selecting or you're identifying a school for your child? What are those specific qualities? Because many parents seem to be taken by the swimming pool, the nice buildings, they have a computer lab. Yes, we agree, those facilities and the fancy or up-to-date facilities attract the eye, and every parent would love such a fancy environment. But I think it is bigger than that. There are other core intrinsic values that one should be looking out for, and this can only be done when we come up to educate the public. You look at the religious morals in that institution. Which skills, apart from physics, math, that are they adding onto the child? The discipline of that school. And how do you tell that discipline? I'll look at only one aspect. How do children respect school uniform? Now, that is just one aspect I'm looking at. How do children respect school uniform? Of course, when I talk of discipline, that whole discussion is bigger. But I want to advise parents, let us not just look at buildings and swimming pool, we conclude. A swimming pool can be got anywhere. Nice buildings. By the education, we can even sit under a tree and we get quality education. It does not necessarily have to be well furnished with SC buildings. So
quality education is what matters. I'll have to put a pin in that. We are still looking at critical issues when it comes to schools, because the first term is about to start, and as parents, we need to think about these issues because they are critical to the health and safety of our children and their progress, because they're sending them to schools because we want them to be, we want them to grow spiritually, we want them to grow socially, we want them to grow intellectually, so that they can lead to the development of this country. So that's why we're talking about these issues. Now, we've spoken about requirements, we've spoken about school fees, we've spoken about how as parents we must be vigilant when we are trying to find the perfect school for our children. Don't just sit back and do everything online and then send the child. Go and find out whether the school actually has the amenities that it has promised to offer, whether that school is good enough for your child. And we need to listen to our children about what they think of the schools they are in, because in that you might find that something wrong is going on in the school. I'm talking about something wrong going on in schools. In Uganda today, we have a problem of homosexuality that is being rampant in schools, and this has come to be at the forefront of conversations in this country. And I will put it to my guests, that's Mr. Andrew Kyeyune, who is a guidance guidance, and he is into guidance and counseling, that is, and he is into capacity building for schools. And then I have Mrs. Elizabeth Opolot, who is the Director, Global Institute of IT and Business, which is located in Makerere. This issue of homosexuality, why is it a big issue and how can it be curtailed?
Oh yes, we are in a very sorry state in the country and the world at large. When you look at what is running on social media and almost every other platform, there is a problem, a very big problem. When these things were just being heard of, we thought they were in those other countries, maybe not specify. Just like when we're hearing of COVID, we thought it was a question of China suffering with its own corona. Within a minute too, it was a problem in Uganda and the whole world faced it. Today, what we used to think was a disease of some European countries, it is in Uganda and all over the world. The question of homosexuality. It's unfortunate it has gone into the young age. And once it gets down to the young age, the world is finished. We are all finished. And this now becomes a wake-up call to every parent. I feel bad when people only say homosexuality in schools. Now we are trying to push away the blame, the responsibility to a particular group, that maybe they are the teachers and school managers who should come up to fight this habit. No. This is a problem that every human being should be seen at the forefront of fighting, eliminating. It's unfortunate some people have embraced this as serious business. They are making lots of money because they even have bigger sponsors. There are things we may not specifically mention here, but they are even sponsors, and they have so much taken the young souls, the young brains, fooling them around with lots of money. Now, you outside the listeners, one thing we must know, that the sponsors of homosexuality, the advocators, are using a lot of money, which becomes a bigger temptation to the young age. So before a parent, kids are still at home, let us spare minutes, hours, educating the children. Let us not even cover it up. The disease is already on ground. I'm calling it a disease because the effects are bigger than we can discuss here. But if a few signs are beginning now to come up in schools, then we are not safe. Today, when you find school A has reported a case of homosexuality, that does not necessarily mean that it is only in that school A. But it is only a wake-up call. This could be the same practice in school B, C, D, E, but maybe they are lucky no one has been identified. Because the ugly side is that few people openly come up to say, I'm a gay, or I do this and the other. No, it is strictly done undercover. Now, every school should be on the alert. Let us talk to these children, showing them the dangers, the evils associated with homosexuality. They have been in holidays for close to 2 months. Trust me, a lot has been learned, including homosexuality. We can't rule it out. These children have phones. What they see, what they learn, what they search on these phones, no one has an idea. But trust me, their brains have been corrupted. Their brains have been fed with a lot of rotten information. They are now anxious, waiting to get back to school, to real practice. So we are in danger, I must say. And I can only sound this cry that let us all wake up. Parents, talk to the children and monitor them. Now, we used to have this culture of go to your uncle, go to your auntie for a holiday. They are also your cousins there. Today, we need to be a little cautious. Are you sure of the habits and the manners of those other cousins? If you're not sure, if you're not trusting anybody, keep with your children home and monitor them closely. Look at every other little thing they watch, what they listen to, what they do. Otherwise, we are in danger. And we don't need to cover up this anymore. These practices are not only in schools, they are even in our societies and communities.
Definitely.
Yes. Thank you very much, Andrew. I want to add that to prove that it is everyone's duty to talk to this child, to counsel. I heard of a case where somebody said they learned this vice from a house girl. So you can imagine it is beginning from home. So it is important that as parents, we really need to keep a very sharp eye, to be very sensitive, to watch every step that this child does that doesn't seem to be the normal one, and you simply strike at that point. Failure to do so, then these children are simply going to multiply and multiply. That, the behavior is going to multiply, and then they will go to another school. Maybe they will get another, other types of I don't know what, So what are we saying? As parents, let us be very keen in seeing and in not seeing, and be able to kill this vice
and detect it at an early stage.
And the question is, do we have time? Because that's a critical thing. Do we actually have time? What we are saying, create the time. Do you ever sit on the dining table and talk as you are enjoying the dinner, as you're enjoying the lunch? Get that opportune time to talk to them and tell them this and this is happening everywhere. But know who you are. If you're a Christian, instill these values in the child at that early point and in time. The Bible says, teach them the ways of God. And when they grow up, they will be able to, they will not depart from those ways. So what is our role as parents? What are we doing? And also it goes to what we said earlier. Let us, when we take these children to schools, what are the values that are going to be inculcated in these children apart from just education? What else? Because I know there are some schools where you say, my child has learned to cooperate. My child has learned to do some of these chores. My child has learned to, it is because there are some schools that are taking off time to add a particular skill more than the education, more than the academics. What are you doing? Even you as a mother, even you as a father, do you take time to do so? By the way, especially the fathers. Fathers play a big role. I'm happy that I'm between male. I don't know. That is a question that we have to ask. Male, there are some statistics where if a man is out of the life of a child, that child actually becomes, if I could say,
unruly.
Unruly. Because the father figure was not there in the life of that child. And also, by the way, psychologists say, whatever it is the child sees, a girl child sees in the father figure, that will help them to settle in marriage, because they will be able to have that figure.
Because reference.
Yes, to have a reference. Now, which kind of reference is your child going to make in life? Are you going to be an absentee father? That is exactly what she's going to take. Likewise, even the boy, what the mother is, that is the picture that boy is going to take, even in marriage and perhaps even at work. They'll be able to appreciate life because of you, the father, you, the mother. What am I saying? As parents, let us do our part. Let us not say, I've paid a house girl to do so. Do you know what that house girl is teaching them? If you are not careful, then whatever it is that they are doing will be actually reflecting what the house girl is. But it has to be you are learning, the child is learning from us. Let us remember, it is not what I say, but what I do. The children are watching us, and that is exactly what they are going to emulate in their life, future life. Not now, but in future, they will remember how mommy used to behave. They will remember how daddy behaved. And that is exactly how they are going to do it. When it comes to work, exactly that. Okay? So, what are we supposed to do? As parents, let us do our part. Let us go to those times where we had time and we were able to talk to these children. We're able to instill in them all these things. Instill in them the fear of God. And they will be able to emulate it, and they will do it forever.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. Now, unfortunately, I don't know why time really runs when we're having a very useful discussion.
Yeah, maybe just to wind up this other question of homosexuality. Increasingly, parents are pushing this blame onto particular schools. That in school A, there is this. But I want to educate the entire country. There is no school that has a subject called homosexuality as of now. These are things we just hear in other countries where even it is a gazetted subject or designed on their timetable. But in Uganda, the curriculum has nothing to do with homosexuality. And there is no school that produces children. These children come from our communities. They then mix at school. So we should not account any school responsible for this practice, but rather we should help any society or community or school where this has been cited. Schools, our role is what? Let us do continuous guidance and counseling to the children to show them that this is happening in the world, but this is Satan at play. Let us not keep quiet. And once people are identified, let us help them run out of this. Parents, equally do your part. Let us help one another, but not play a blame game.
Indeed. And Mr. Andrew,
yes,
as a professional practicing guidance and counseling, in closing, very quickly, I want you to also advise us as parents, but also as teachers and school administrators on how we can help build the mental health of our students, because we have seen there's been a problem with depression and mental illness, anxiety amongst students in schools.
When you look at what children are going through that is affecting their mental health, these are problems that are either coming from home, the environment, at times even the schools where they go. Society has its own issues. Families are rotten, families are broken, parents don't have time for children. All this can best be addressed through continuous guidance and counseling. Schools have always called upon school managers. Gone are the days, especially now we are coming from a long holiday, and you find a teacher A straight away wants to say, where do we stop in physics? The first 1 week and continuously, let us talk to the children. Let us spare time, at least on a weekly basis, meet a class, share, open up an office for guidance and counseling, where children can have that other second person to speak to, either in privacy or openly in class. So let us create room to increase the ears ready to listen to the children. Otherwise, children are going through so many psychosocial challenges, issues here and there. let us be ready to listen and talk to the children. If you cannot identify any staff, we are readily available. Kyeyune Andrew is readily available, can always be contacted. We work with a team. It's a bigger team. Whether addressing female issues or male issues or general issues, we are ready to come to your school, spare time. We know the issues to talk to the children and how best to handle them. I can freely, I think at this hour, give out my contact for those who may need it. 0706 281566. 0706 281566. We talk to teachers because they also need mentorship on how best to address these issues. Then we also talk to the children. And even when you have a child out there with deviant behaviors, you may not have the right approach. Invite us. We shall freely talk to the child, and we have a better generation.
Indeed, Mrs. Elizabeth, very quickly, for those who would like to enroll into the institute, how can they do so?
Yes, thank you very much, Bruno. Yes, for those who are listening to us and viewing us, at Global Institute of IT and Business, found at Makerere, Kubiri, we are ready to receive anyone who wants to do vocational education. But we have other courses like in IT, in business, in media, and also in business and IT, vocational, and health science, which is medical records. We have those courses, especially S6 leavers and S4 leavers. But we also have short courses in different fields. Feel free to come to our campus at Kubiri, and we shall be able to help you. We are going to give an all-round person who is good at all these skills.
Indeed,
thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Andrew Kyeyune, for addressing these issues. Thank you so much, Mrs. Elizabeth Opolot, for also helping us discuss these issues and find solutions to these problems. And now, for us as parents, let's listen to our children. Let's create quality time with our children to hear from them, and as well as teachers and school administrators, we need to hear what the plight of our children is, especially when it comes to different issues, when it comes to things like their mental health, when it comes to their well-being, and certain acts that may or may not be happening in the schools that we manage. And together, as all stakeholders, government, parents, teachers, administrators, we shall kick these vices out of schools, and schools will become institutions where education can grow in this country and lead to the betterment of our country. Thank you for joining us at Issues at Hand this morning. God richly bless you. It is time for a coffee break.